Welcome, I'm Eleanor Burns. Today I'm going to show you a new quilt called Tennessee Waltz. Well, I can't say that name without my mind just bursting into song. I remember the night and the Tennessee Waltz. Well, you remember that a loved one was stolen away by an old friend. They happened to see the night they were dancing. Well, your heart will be stolen away with this easy traditional pattern and with no curved piecing. Sue Bouchard made this beautiful queen-size quilt in 1880 reproduction fabrics with just 2 easy blocks. Well, the first block, the star block, is the most dominant with bright red star points. 4 patches frame the star in a large scale print. Well, the second block, a snowball block, use a coordinating small scale print, which is also the star center. The background is free motion quilted with wonderful hearts, and the red framing border is just a stunning touch. To use up leftover strips from the 4 patches, you can make a piece border to frame the top, and the large scale print is just beautiful in the outside border. Well, this country French quilt is a long way from Tennessee, but nonetheless charming. I just love the traditional blue and yellow fabrics with a touch of gold. And typical of the prints from France, the 4 patches are cute daisies, and the stripe border is olive branches. You know, the backing is just too much fun. Using up the rest of the stripe. It's bright, but it's great. Well, this winter holiday wall hanging is festive with fussy cut cardinals in the snowball blocks. Now there's great free motion quilting surrounding the cardinals and quilting a 1/4 of an inch away in the star blocks. 2 different backgrounds, just spice it up for variety. Now hang this one on your wall or make a second one for your table with only 3 blocks. You can make it narrow enough for your table, plus save time by not adding a border. And the poinsettia quilting on the backing just adds to the joyous spirit. It's wonderful. Well, we'll waltz into spring with this bright one in fuchsia pink and turquoise. Now this one is great to use to explain how to select your fabrics. Just start off with a small to medium-sized print for the 4 patches. And then from that print, choose a dark medium for star points and snowball corners. You know, the curves just show up well if that fabric is monochromatic. And it's best if the star center is the same color family as the star points, so you see the whole star and not just the points. Well, this quilt is doing the quick stack. It's just so bright and happy. You know, it's a perfect child's quilt. In fact, we call it the Happy Star. It all started with the colorful border of red, yellow, orange, purple, and blue. And then each star is a different color with the border fabric repeated in the star center and the snowball corners. Ooh, and the background has dots in all the same colors. It's just so much fun. Now this is another bright one in blue and lime green. Well, the fabrics on the top actually started with the backing fabric, which is just so vibrant. The black background is very appropriate to set off the stars and the snowball blocks. And those bright 4 patches make an O around the star points. Beautiful. Well, we go from jazzed up to restful. This quilt is very peaceful in colors of blue and yellow. It's a lap robe with the star points and the snowball the same fabric. Then the center of the star, the 4 patch, and the border are all the same fabrics. Well, on this particular quilt, the 4 patch make an X instead of an O because that layout actually looked the best. Well, this one is different because you get an octagon shape with the combination of the 2 blocks. Well, the background on the star points is medium, just as the snowball corners. They're both purple. Well, the scrappy 4 patches are just a great way to use up strips, and those star centers are all scrappy too. It's just beautiful. Well, it's time to step up to a new quilt. Let the music begin. I like the scrappy quilt so much that I'm going to make another scrappy Tennessee waltz. This is the block. We're going to start with the 4-patch. The 4-patch ends up being a 3.5-inch square, and you can see I've used a multiple of colors in it, and that's what I love. These are all the scraps left over from my fabric line. Now they are 2-inch strips. They start out 2-inch strips. So when you're doing a plant, you start out with whole strips and you cut them in half on the fold, each one of them, so that you have a nice long strip, but not too long to manage on your cutting mat or on your pressing mat. But we're going to do scrappy. I want to have lots of variety in my colors, so I cut each strip into 4 pieces, so they're like a fourth. For every block that you make, you need to have 2 background that are anywhere from 9 to 11 inches in length. They're all 2 inches wide. And then you need to have 2 scrappy ones, again, 9 to 11 inches in length. So I'm just going to take these half strips for the planned because I'm going for scrappy. Okay, let's just lay out the background and lay out the background on the left, the print on the right, flip them right sides together, and now we just get to pedal right down there. They are a 1/4-inch seam, 15 stitches to the inch. Oh, you know you might need to move your needle this time. If you're using your 1/4-inch foot, we want to have a piece that is 3.5 inches wide when we're done. And I found that if I didn't move my needle just a little to the right with my 1/4-inch foot, I had a narrow piece. So you might want to just go ahead and take one and do a test on it. I'm going to press this and I will show you what width you need to have. So just zip right down there. We have enough for 4-patch right now. So much fun to dig into your scraps and just find everything, have a little bit of fun reminiscing about the quilt that you made originally from it. Now I like to use a gridded pressing mat, so lay it right down along the lines in your grid. Set your seam if you want to give it a little steam. Just set right across there so that your stitches sink right in, and then open, and I like to lead with my fingers first. Just press it open so that the seam is behind the dark. That's a rule. Not too many rules, but that is one of them. So now we have one set ready for 4-patch. And just go ahead, clip it apart. When you place it on your mat, always put the dark towards the bottom, background on top, and take the second piece and place the dark on the top this time. It's just the opposite of what you're doing. Just use your fingers and lock them together. Ooh, I'm really good at feeling along here. Well, I want to use this plastic ruler so I can cut quickly. And because I'm using this wide plastic ruler, you don't have to just do one set. How about let's do a couple? I mean, I might make a queen size, who knows? So I'm going to get a couple all lined up so I can cut multiples at the same time. Each piece I'm putting down is a different color. Let's just kind of shove those together. Different scales, different prints. Wonderful. Let's see if I can just line them up. Now, take your plastic ruler and line up the 0 across the bottom. And make sure that you've cleared all of the rough edges, all of the salvages, any uneven edges. I'm good. I'm going to start at 0, put my cutter right in at the 0 slot, and just bear down and cut across. These are 2-inch pieces. They're 2-inch strips. They're 2-inch pieces now. So I'm going to put in at 2, move along at 4. I like even measurements like this. I'm going to get over to 8. I've actually layered enough for 4, and I'm not going to get a 5th one. That's okay. Did it great. Let's just take this edge, pull it away. This is all extra. And over here, that's all extra too. Now, Gonna just start. This is a whole set of four patch. I got 4, 8, 12. Good, nice and fast. So now when you grab it up, your seam on the top is always going up. Underneath, your seam is always going down. And that way, whenever you stitch, then it locks that seam together. And that way you're going to have perfect matches. Use your stiletto. Go ahead and run it along like that. And just butt each piece right behind until you have your whole row done. And let's just see how the match is. What do you think? Is it going to match? So I'm going to open it up and take a peek. And let's see. Pretty good. Perfect. Now, this is the trick. This is my swirling trick so that the center lays nice and flat. You always take the seam on the top, push it to the right, and then take the bottom seam and push it to the left. And when you do that, that whole little center just pops open. And you just take your finger and just mush it right down there. Make it nice and flat. And then from this side, you can just go ahead and finger press, take it to the iron. At this step, this patch should be 3.5 inches. 3.5 inches, and it looks great. Now, if I turn it over on this side, I see that I have just a tiny sliver in that white background. I'm just going to trim that off, and it is perfect. I'm going to sew all these together, and I'll show you how to make the points. I'm doing the octagon look in the star point. So I'm having the dark points and the medium triangle set in there. They come from 2 sets of strips. This light purple is a 4-inch strip, and the star points are from 5-inch strips. I'm using a set of rulers to square these up and make them very perky. Makes it really easy to do. Now, our 4 patch was 3.5 inches. So obviously we have to make the star point 3.5 inches as well. Well, on this ruler, there are 2 different sizes, but the red represents the 3.5-inch size. We're going to square our patch up to that perfect size. Well, to cut that single triangle, we have the 2 sizes from the top clear down to the bottom. It could be a 4.5-inch, which is the whole outside edge, or just a 3.5-inch. So the red line there and the red line here go together. Lots to remember, but it's easy to do. So let's just start with the star points. I'm back with my ruler again. I just have to get it cut so quickly. It's 5 inches, but we're just going to cut these into 2.5-inch rectangles. Just go right ahead and cut across. It's easy with 2.5 again. I like easy measurements. So every set of rectangles is enough for 2 star points. Okay, so now let's just go ahead and cut it very carefully, corner to corner on one diagonal. Now the pieces have to be wrong sides together. There are 2 of them. Don't get tricky and try to do a single layer. It won't work, because watch. If you take one of these, you have to open it up. There's your star points. Take the other half, open it up. There's your star points. So you've got to have them layered wrong sides together. I'm just going to move that over, and that's ready for sewing. Okay, we're going to grab the 4-inch strip now and this ruler. And remember I said you have to use the red line. So let's just line up the red line across the bottom of the strip. What's very important on this patch is that it's flat on the top. It doesn't come to a point, it's flat. You need that to make a perfect 1/4 inch seam. So I'm going to go up one side, just turn, go down the other. This is extra, you can get rid of that. Now, just pick up your ruler and turn it around, line up that red line across the top edge. You've got the flat top there, hold it, and cut again. And actually have 4 star points here too. So we are just doing great. And I'm going to stack them all right side up. Make sure I can just pedal. Okay, looking good. Believe it or not, this is important. I've done this so many times. Take this right stack and set it aside. Don't let it get you confused. It's gone now. Now, take this single triangle in the medium and let's just flip it right sides together. I want you to see. So I'm pulling everything away. Flip it right sides together and you have this perfect match point right there. See how that's hanging out? Got a perfect straight line, a perfect triangle right there. And your seam is going to be right along here. This time you don't need to use a scant 1/4 of an inch because it's going to work just perfect. Okay, so put it underneath, drop your presser foot on there, line up your foot, and just zip right down along. You've got that tip at the top, and look at this. You got a mighty long tip hanging out at the bottom edge, but that's exactly how it's supposed to be. Exactly like that. And I'm just going to do one so you can see how it goes. And let's check it out. See how the seam started right at that tip, just a triangle at the top, and this is a mighty long one here. Now you're just going to turn over so the star point is on the top. You can go to the iron or you can just do it with your fingernails. Press it open, and that's the start. Now, remember that right tip I set aside? Now we need it. It's because I've just screwed up so many times. I don't want you to do it. Let's just take one of these, and it's going to go flip right sides together, and there's a perfect match point created. Right up here at the top, you're just going to line up those two edges. See how those triangles lay on top of each other? You got that long old tip right at the bottom. It's perfect. So let's just stitch right across there on that one. Needle down, same 1/4 of an inch seam, and use your stiletto to keep those edges lined up. You'll be much happier. Okay, cut those threads, and let's see if we have that 1/4 of an inch seam at the top. Okay, there it is at the top. Open it up, and we actually have extra. That's what's really important. You can do like this with your finger, but now that I'm going to square it up, I'm just going to do one pressing. Make sure. Just take your iron from the tip, go straight in, give it a little steam if you like, make it nice and flat. Ooh, it is so beautiful. And now we're going to use that second ruler, the square one, the square up one. I've got points everywhere. Take and put your patch on a small mat because we're going to be turning around. Now, do you see the red triangle right here? That red triangle just slides right up in here. Ooh, perfect. Little extra, that's the best part. We've got a little extra. I'm going to turn it so that I can trim. I'm going to trim up on one side, get rid of the side, and across the top. The 1/4 of an inch is built in. Now I'm just going to tip up the ruler, turn the patch. For the two sides I already trimmed, now go along this square edge. So drop it down right there and get it all lined up. You actually just use the edge of the patch against the lines and then trim one more on the side and across the bottom, and this is perfect. Let me show you. Now you have that perfect 1/4 of an inch right here, and it's tricky. Your seams do not go into the corners on this one. They're actually approximately 1/8 inch in on the sides, and this is a perfect patch. You can see it from the wrong side. I only have to make 3 more perfect patches for one star. We are stepping right through this. We already have our 4 patch done, our star points done, and all we need is a 3.5 inch center square. Now, since I'm doing scrappy, you can just change them around, use any fabric that you really like, mix them up, make them interesting, and then place your 4 star points around the center. Now, when I do the 4 patch, I always think of a circle and lay out my 4 patch in that circle with the dark point. want to make sure that you don't have the same fabrics in the 4-patch, mix them up. Now, I always take the middle vertical row and flip it to the left. So you can do vertical rows straight down along there. Take the one whole stack right to the sewing machine. Now, you might want to use a jumper scrap so that whenever you start, your sewing machine doesn't just eat these corners. Oh, it would just love to do that. Help feed it through also with your stiletto so it gets started. And you just continuously sew these pieces one after the other. I want to show you what it looks like on the back side on this star point so you get a really perky star point. I already did this row. Let's just open it up because all you need to do next is flip the 3rd row right into the middle row. But from the wrong side, when you stitch through your star point, you always want to sew right through that V. It makes it very sharp on the right side. It's perfect. Well, once you've gone down both vertical rows, then you want to go across. At this point, press your seams away from the star points so that whenever you pick them up, then they all lock together and it'll match on the opposite side. So you just dance right through your star blocks. The Tennessee Waltz is another name for a traditional quilt pattern called 54, 40, or Fight, after a campaign slogan used by James Polk in 1844. Well, the name stands for 54 degrees, 40 minutes north latitude. Well, that was the Oregon Territory dispute with Great Britain. The proponents of this slogan wanted the United States to have this territory or else go to war. Well, the pattern is also known as Grandma's Star or the railroad quilt. Well, this beautiful antique quilt was labeled 54, 40, or Fight when I purchased it. Now, I think the quilt maker named it Garden Patch because of this beautiful pink fabric and the stitched tulips. Well, she embroidered her initial M across the top. This piece is called Grandpa's Whisker Cloth to protect the quilt. But maybe it wasn't for Grandpa at all, but M stands for Mother. Well, the actual quilt is still underneath, very protected. The star points are 4.5 inches square with 4 patches in the corners and then across the center. Well, instead of a snowball block, the blocks are set together with plain muslin lattice strips. You know, traditional pumpkin seeds are quilted throughout. I just love it. You know, evidently, she loved pink. She used it in the borders and in the backing as well. Very feminine looking. Well, this is another great antique quilt. It's called Dora's Delight. I recently purchased it in Walnut, Iowa. It's certainly unique with the ruffle around the outside edge in place of a binding. You know, it was probably made in the 1940s. It's a style used in place of a dust ruffle. The triangle and a square patch was used for the star, and then piece squares are in the corners. The quilt maker stitched in the ditch 1/4 inch inside each patch. And then the center of the block is unique with a square in a square. The blocks are set together with solid squares, quilted with large flowers in the middle of each square. It's just beautiful. You know, I love to take my calling from the antique quilts like 54, 40, or Fight. This one is called Garden Walk. My sister Patty made this one with a variety of her favorite colors. Oh, she loves turquoise and blue batiks. It has a very contemporary feel. Well, the bright flowers walk from one to the next with the connecting cornerstones. Net of virgin quilted loops throughout the jewel tones on the bright gray background. And then a deep purple folded border and wide multicolored border just pull the color scheme together. Wonderful. You know, this is my all-time favorite garden walk in rich black and reds. There's a variety of prints, but they're all in similar values, so they blend together nicely. And then even the background fabrics are scrappy. One half of the star patch is red, and then the opposite side is black. The 4 patches carry out the 2 colors. You know, I just love the flower that's quilted in the very center. The tendrils just reach out to the outside edges. Then the red folded border and the multicolored border is the final touch. And cabling is quilted in the border. It's wonderful. So whatever you call your quilt, Tennessee Waltz, 5440 or Fight, Grandma's Star, or Garden Walk, may you enjoy your quilting.